today I am delighted to be in conversation with the dynamic Kenny Rooster. Is there a particular scene or venue or experience that you had getting on stage that was very like transformative, whether it was, the trial by fire, actually you got burnt, or it was just like, this has gone really well?
Oh, absolutely. Okay. So I now run a lot of shows, and I also am now doing drag. I'm doing burlesque. I do theater, but separately, and more. I like think of myself as doing theater. I'm not actively participating in that quite as much because I don't have the time. But before I was doing all of that, I was obviously like an open mic comedian. And I have always thought that I was hilarious, because if you don't think that you're hilarious, even against, certain degrees of your better judgment, then you will fail at this business, because there will always, no matter how good you are, be at least 100,000 people who think you're not shit. And, so I like thought that I was very talented. I ended up getting this gig super randomly, because this one pal like got it for me. It was at somebody's house. It was like very bizarre, but a touring comedian was there, and he saw my set and he was like, "Hey, I am on the admissions board for the Seattle International Comedy Competition, and you should apply." And I was like, absolutely, I should. And I'm going to win it, and I'm going to crush it, and I'm going to kill it. Okay. So I get everything ready. I'm so excited. And I really have it in my heart and soul that I am going to blow the competition out of the water. I show up. And we get there the first day. I'm meeting all of the other comedians. I was like, oh my God. This is so cool. Like, I'm like doing comedy in a new place. I'm basically famous, and probably I will be on Netflix after this. And the way that they do the competition is every night. It's a series of weeks and a series of rounds. So round one is Thursday to Sunday. Mm-hmm. And you do one show a night in a different part of Seattle and the surrounding areas, and you get ranked numerically by a panel of judges. Right now, also keep in mind that I am non-binary, but that practically will not ever matter in my life quite as much as I'd like it to, because people see me the way that they see me, and that's as a lady. And they're not 100% wrong, which makes it more complicated. Are you confused? Because so am I. But the point is, right, that a woman, if we're going on the binary system, has won, I think, 2 times in like 52 years. I don't have the stats on gay people, but I'm guessing it's no. And so, right, I don't let this deter me. I don't think twice of it, because I am essentially Jesus. Come back to inspire the comedy world to get on my level. And so this first night, I get second to last. I was second to last. I have never felt more, oh my God, right. So I was like, okay, that was super weird. I hated that. I hated every second of that, but it was a fluke, and I just went too late in the lineup, and the person before me killed, and like, it wasn't even my fault. Like, it's totally fine. And honestly, Seattle's homophobic, and it was actually crushing, because Seattle, that first night was the most gay people we ever had in the audience. So it get worse from there. But the next night, right, we had to, do a clean show. And I don't know if you're getting this vibe from everything about me, but that is not my forte. So I decide, they also have a thing where if the audience applauds for a full 5 seconds after you get off stage, you get an extra point. And almost everyone always gets it. Except at this clean show, not only do I mostly bomb, I did not get the clap. I truly, and I wasn't even bad. That was the thing. I wasn't on par. Like, I was competing with people who have been in this game for a decade, for years and years, who like are so much more seasoned than I am. I am retrospectively very honored to have been allowed on that stage with them, right? But it's not that I was like terrible. I just really wasn't these people's cup of tea. And I'm sure also had I, been watching myself as the comedian that I am now, I would have been like, who let that bitch on this stage? But right, I get off stage and I am about to have a full mental breakdown. One of the people running the festival felt so bad because she had watched as like it was all the gay people didn't get the 5 claps, except one of the ones that was older because the crowd was old and they were like, solidarity, we see you. You're gay, but you're our kind of gay. None of this newfangled non-binary shit. And so, right. I end up, she like tried to be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like you really like it, like this is just like, oh my God, I like don't even. And I was like, it's fine. Like great, very professional of me, really kept it in. And then I storm out of the community center, thank you, that we're performing in. And I silently sob as I walk in the night around all of these pine trees at some weird golf course, and I'm singing I'll Make a Man Out of You from Mulan. Why? I don't know, but it was the only thing between me and the brink, and the only thing keeping me from diving into the golf pond or whatever those bodies of water are that they always have there. And I was on the phone. I ended up calling one of my partners and I was like, honestly, I think I'm going to quit comedy. I was like, this is the most horrific experience I have ever had. I have never felt worse about myself. I have never felt less talented. I don't know what is happening, but like, I think that this is genuine. I'm not even religious, but like, this is God. God came for me. I am being smote right now, but it's me. I'm doing it. I'm just bad. The smoting happened with the talent he didn't give me. And my partner was like, this is super not how I thought this experience was going to go for you. But it's okay. Like, you're fine. Take some deep breaths, do whatever. Now, I did, and I don't even remember exactly. No, I do remember what it was. The next day, we had to travel. We had to travel to get to our next location down this mountainous road. And I was in a car with 3 other people. One of them was the head of the festival who had invited me there. And he is whipping it at like 80 miles an hour. We are we are on the mountain. I have the guy next to me who's like, yeah, my friend just died. I watched him die in a horrific car crash on a night much like this when we were also late to go to a show. He like lost it, like, and then my other friend didn't die, but like had such severe brain damage that he just like started like saying racial slurs all the time. Like he wasn't even himself anymore. I am listening to this like, oh my God. But it has already been made clear. Like there was a lot of like casual misogyny happening that was like, oh my God, I just like don't understand why like women can't give critique and like, oh my God, like all of this stuff. So I was like, well, I can't be like a critiquey woman that's like, please don't murder us on this mountainside by going 85 miles per hour. So, right, I am just in the back, like every part of me was clenched. The guy next to me who just experienced a car crash, like a year or 2 years ago, was also just like, oh my God, both of us for this entire like 2-hour drive are just, I was like, I don't even do witchcraft, but I was like, I will Google it. I'm Googling on my phone protection stuff. I was like, I just need some, I was praying. I was like, Jesus, we can be friends again. Please come back into my heart. Like, oh my God. We make it, we get out of this car. And I went on stage that night and I had never cared less in my entire life about how I did because I was so happy that I had survived the drive and I killed. I still ranked bottom mid, but for my track record in that competition, I like knowing that I just was not the judge's cup of tea. I killed. And everybody came up to me afterwards and was like, oh my God, like you did really good. And I was like, thank God, I'm funny now. This has been devastating. And then for the last, and I was like a phoenix reborn from the ashes between those two experiences. I was just like, oh my God, it doesn't matter. Like nothing matters. And all you can do is like do your best, especially when it comes to comedy. Like any sort of comedy competition is, you know, wicked fun, but is so stupid because comedy is so subjective. And I could watch somebody do a set that I think is so deeply horrific, and then I see them getting booked on a show the next week. It's like, you know, there's no rhyme, or I mean, there is some rhyme and reason, but you know, not at certain levels. And the finals of that first round, would you believe, didn't make it through to the second round. But I watched all of these comedians who had been killing it this entire time, who were so talented, who were like making me a better comedian just by letting me hear their same 5-minute set over and over and over again, have psychological meltdowns about this competition and about how horrible it is to have a number ranking attached to what you do, especially when it is so personal and it is so intrinsic to like who you are. And when you are sharing yourself with people and then everyone's like, 5.7. You're like,
we're joined by a Baltimore-based comedian and improviser. Please welcome the very funny and talented Roberto Reed. Tell me about that first time you like stepped on a stage, like the legit, like, because in theory, we're always on a stage, but in that real sort of, was it an open mic situation? Was it improv? Was it like, yeah, I'm at school, I'm just going to run this bit right now, I'm going to do these jokes? What was that first time on stage? To set the stage for us, if you will.
The first time, I'm going to describe two instances, because one was, I think the first time that I was stepping onto a stage alone with the purpose of speaking to make people laugh or doing whatever it was. And at a time where I knew that this was like the career path that I was going on, but it wouldn't be for another couple of years that I would start it, was in my freshman year of college. I was 17. I was in the marching band, and there was at the end of what they call band camp. The marching band spends 2 weeks before anybody else arrives at the school. Same football team is there also, but we're running drill, and we're preparing for the first season. At the end of, the long 2 weeks, there's a social gathering where it's a talent show. Each section of the band has to give a talent, and it's mostly just an opportunity to do whatever you want, like really do whatever you want and be creative as a team or whatever. And I was really, I don't even remember what my section did, but I was really pushing for me to be able to go up onto the stage before everybody and introduce us and introduce the set and just say a few things. And like, I remember trying to like run, like, talking with them about like what might be funny for me to say, or what's a funny way for me to set it up. And I don't know if it was just because I was really strong about it or what it was, but they just allowed me to do that without really much explanation of what I was going to say or do. And I did it, and it was, and I didn't get, I remember not getting a terrible amount of laughs, but I do remember saying a few things that were the correct thing to say, and, made everybody laugh in the moment and set it up. And I was like, so that was the first time that I forcefully gave myself an opportunity to do so, that wasn't by accident, or wasn't just like me performing just because that's something I do. It was like on purpose. And then it wasn't until maybe a year later, it was actually, I know the exact date because it was 2 days after COVID dropped. It was March 15th or something, 2020. There was a show that was kind of a glorified open mic, but it was on the college campus. A buddy of mine was doing it with his a cappella group. There was a small band. There was like poetry reading and singers and whatever else. And I signed up to do it as a stand-up. Yeah. And they immediately were like, oh, heck yeah, we didn't expect anybody to do anything like that. That's awesome. And that was going to be my first time on stage. And I was writing jokes for it. I had this little leather book that I kept around with. I still have it, but that I was keeping on me walking around campus for like a year before that, just writing things down. Yeah. So I spent maybe 2 months before this thinking about what I'm going to wear and, writing out these jokes. And I remember really enjoying like that opportunity because I was thinking about like pace. I was thinking about things that I didn't even realize until much later that I was doing, which was, I was like, pretty, like how the pacing of a joke and the tone and how my delivery and stuff like that. And then the school, they said, okay, you're going on spring break early and you're also not going to come back until a week after. We were like, great, extra long spring break. So we had a COVID party.
Yeah.
Shout out 2020 before anybody really knew. We had a Corona party. Actually, we got a 24 case of Corona. Went to my buddy's apartment. We just had a party, and all my friends were there, and I was like, and it came up that I wasn't able to. Everybody knew that I was going to do this, and it wasn't going to be, and I wasn't going to be able to do it. So they gave me the chance right there, and I did my set for them.
Nice.
And it killed. And it was like, oh, that was it. That's all I needed. It was like justification. It wasn't exactly what I wanted, but I worked on something and the payoff, kind of, then a year and a half later, I was actually starting stand up, but it was that moment that I was like, okay, if I work on something, there's a payoff and I can keep trying whatever that is.
My next guest is a dynamic personality from the Baltimore, Washington metropolitan area. He's an actor, comedian, model, radio show host, just all of the jobs. He just has all of the jobs. Please welcome the very funny Larry Lancaster. Who are some of those influences that come to mind? It could be big names, local names, like names that you really want to shout out because they didn't get their due. Because I know
right.
It's one of those things where it's like, this person's popping right now. No one else gets to do anything. So who are they and how have they helped like you along your path?
Well, before I started doing comedy, I used to study comedy. So of course, you rely on the big names when you're just watching TV, or I used to rent VHS tapes. This is to show you how long it goes back. And, of course, Eddie Murphy in his prime, Richard Pryor, Martin Lawrence, Damon Wayans, even George Carlin. I was a big fan of his. I liked a lot of Whoopi stuff. She used to do a lot of one-woman show type of stuff. Lily Tomlin, Don Rickles, no respect at all. Rodney Dangerfield, Sam Kinison, Gary Shanley, like the list goes on as far as those guys are concerned. But then when I started doing comedy, I started realizing that there are people who people don't even know. You've never heard of these guys, and they're 10 times funnier than some of the people that I've named.
Yeah.
So, my personal comedy mentors are guys like Joe Recker, who's not with us any longer. Stacey Carver, one of my early influences. Jay Phillips. He had a comedy ease. He was just so funny with very little effort. And so I always liked guys like that, like Tony Woods, who actually was a mentor to Dave Chappelle. He's out of the DC area. Let me see, because there's so many influences and I don't want to leave anybody out. It's a guy named Jay Lamont. And I remember him telling me something very profound. We did a show together and I didn't do very well. And he pulled me to the side afterwards and he said, hey, man, I'm no funnier than you. I'm just more experienced. And this was he just went up and killed the spot.
Yeah.
So that gave me a different perspective about how to approach comedy and how you have to prepare. And even when you mentioned about drinking, I did that early on in my career too, trying to get that liquid courage. And then you get drunk and you can't remember none of your set because you're impaired. So it reminded me about not developing bad habits.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of people that I could name, man, that are very funny, that have influenced me.
That's great. And it's really one to...
Oh, I got to mention these guys. Howard G., Ricky Shackelford, Coca Brown, Queen Aisha, Lonnie Davis, Laughing Lenny, all these guys have helped me, man. King Kedar, another brother. I can't remember the brother's name. The Fat Doctor. Like these are legendary comics in the DMV area, and they're known all over the place. So just people who always helped me out and gave me words of encouragement.
Today, we have a good one. We're exploring Baltimore's comedy scene with a guest known for production work, his wit, his charm, being a performer, just around the scene, just really, really great stuff. Join us for a dialogue on creativity and connectivity with the great Michael Furr. What is it like being being a public persona in Baltimore? That's the thing. It's like you're on stage,
it
you're
definitely
in this city.
Yeah. I mean, a lot, I don't think I'd ever call myself famous, but I get recognized a lot. And I think it's because I've been producing and hosting about 150 shows a year for the past few years. And I was at one venue for many years where I hosted multiple shows a week, sometimes 2 or 3 a night. So, you see a lot of the same people and you see a lot, and, people know you. And, I've got specials and stuff, and I do a lot of, promotion of stuff when it happens. So I do get recognized sometimes. And, it's usually just like, oh, hey, you're the guy from the thing. That's cool. Oh, we had a good time. You're funny or whatever. But, sometimes it's more than that. I've had people very earnestly tell me about, how they sat down, same-sex couple sat down with their kid and, they showed them my special and they wanted to talk about their gay experience. And, I met a woman at a comedy show and she had a queer child who was 15 and in high school in the same community that I went to high school in. And he was having a really hard time. And they sat down and watched my first special together and talked about it, because that's a theme of the first special was, growing up as a gay kid in the dumb ages, and but pre-internet era where no one was culpable for anything. And so it's an interesting thing. I very much treat comedy like it's my job. It's very much the thing I do. I host, I produce, I run shows, and I perform. And those are all just different facets of the job that I do hopefully every week. And that's a weird thing to get recognized for, because it's a job you do on stage. And I'm sometimes in so much tunnel vision, I don't even think about how it's going or if people are watching. People say, "Oh, I follow you on social media," and I'm like, I don't what, I don't know what you're talking about. You're one of my favorite TikTok creators, and I'm like, I'm a what now? Like I don't think about it as like, oh, everybody's going to see this and they're going to like it, and I just kind of put it out there, and that's just a part of what I do. So it is cool to be recognized and it's fun, but I feel that it's my responsibility as a producer and a host and as a showrunner and just a booker and everything is about making a space for other performers. And that's the whole reason I started doing it, was to get as many people who want to be on stage to do the thing they want to do and hopefully get paid to do it. And so that's a great thing to get recognized for. People say, "Oh, you run you produce the all women's night and non-binary night, and you host the queer comedy show, and you run the place where they do this." And so that's a great thing to be known for, because part of the reason I started producing shows is because there was nobody producing queer comedy in this city. And, I was like, well, someone should do that. And I'm like, well, I guess it's going to have to be me. And, and it has been me the whole time. So, since then. So I'm very happy when that's the thing I get recognized for. But, it's always nice too. I always screenshot anytime anyone recognized me on one of the apps, because that's my favorite thing, is someone who wants to see my naked pictures and then they say, "Oh, I think I know you." And I'm like, okay, well, you could have told me that before.